At dinner, my daughter raised her glass to toast her mother-in-law. "This is the woman I wish had raised me. She'll be the only real grandmother to my children." I calmly replied, "I understand. Then she can provide for your life from now on. I'm glad you're here. Stay with me until the end. And tell me, what city are you watching my story from? I want to know just how far it's traveled." I never imagined the day would come when my daughter would stop seeing me as her mother. My fork hadn't even made it to my mouth when she said it. Honestly, I wish I had a mother like Clarice. She didn't even look at me, just said it like I wasn't sitting right there, like I hadn't spent years raising her with worn hands and quiet sacrifices. The whole room froze. No one touched their glass. Nobody tried to laugh it off. All I could hear was my own pulse pounding. Her husband let out a soft laugh, eyes locked on his wine like it might offer a way out. My sister shifted in her seat, uneasy, and my jaw went slack before it clenched so tight I felt it grind. I laid my knife and napkin down slow and exact, folding them neat on the table. My hand stayed steady. My voice didn't waver. I looked Lena in the eye, those same eyes that used to fill with tears from me after her father died, and I said, "Then she can finance your life from now on." Not loud, not angry, just done. I pushed back my chair and stood. The legs dragged against the tile like a verdict. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody asked if I was all right. I walked out of my own home with nothing in my hands. No purse, no keys. I didn't even bother to close the front door behind me. I made it 2 blocks before I realized how tight my fists were balled up, how they throbbed from it. I sat at the bus stop, the one with peeling paint and a seat that had probably held 100 stories just like mine, and I didn't feel a damn thing. No rage, no heartbreak. Just this deep, quiet emptiness. And out of that silence came one question that stuck to my ribs. When did I stop being her mother and become her servant? It wasn't the first time she measured me against that woman. Clarice, her mother-in-law, pearls, smiles, and sugar-coated jabs. She baked cookies, hosted baby showers, handed out advice like she'd earned it just by being rich and married. Lena clung to her. Or maybe she clung to the kind of life Clarice made look easy. But tonight, Lena made her choice, and she did it loud enough for everyone to hear. That wasn't some slip. That was a declaration. And what gutted me most wasn't the words. It was knowing she meant them. She meant every syllable. So I let her. And I didn't chase after her love like I always had. I wandered the neighborhood for hours, under old maples and blinking streetlights, until my anger cooled to something heavy and still. When I finally walked back inside, the house breathed like it had been waiting. The walls still held Lena's voice from when she was 6 and called me Mama. The kitchen table still showed the scratch from that night she sobbed over her divorce, and I was too exhausted to notice a pen digging into the wood. Every part of her was still in this house, and none of it meant a damn thing anymore. I walked the hallway, past the photo wall that hadn't been updated since before her wedding. She stopped giving me new pictures after Grant came along. His mom's a professional photographer, she'd said, like the portraits I took on my cracked phone were worth less than trash. I stepped into the nursery I'd started fixing the second she said she was pregnant. It wasn't fancy, but it was full of love. Soft green walls, hand-sewn curtains, a second-hand rocking chair I reupholstered myself. The shelf held every stuffed animal she once adored, cleaned and waiting for the baby I thought I'd get to rock to sleep. I sat down on the edge of the bed, resting my hand on the tiny hat I'd knitted just 2 weeks ago. Pale blue, with a silver button stitched at the top. She never asked for it. I just made it, like I always did. I thought about her dad, how rough it got after he died. She was 16, mad at the world, lonely, shut down, and I was too wiped out to even grieve right. I pushed through it the only way I knew how. I worked, picked up extra shifts, emptied our savings, made sure her college apps stayed on track, sold our vacation fund to get her a used car. No one noticed, no one clapped, but I remember sitting in the laundry room at night, the dryer going just so she wouldn't hear me fall apart. I raised that girl alone. No help, no applause, no room to complain. And now she sits at my table, calling some other woman her real mother, like I didn't pour myself out for her life. The old me, Irene from back then, would have made peace, baked a casserole the next morning, shown up with a smile to help paint the nursery like her heart hadn't just been yanked out. But that woman's gone. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed the casserole dish I'd made yesterday, ziti with bechamel, her favorite, and dumped it straight into the trash, still warm. And somewhere in the back of my head, I heard her voice from years ago. Mom, you're too practical. You never spoil anyone. I laughed when she said that. Didn't know she'd turn it into a strike against me. Like safety wasn't enough, like feeding her through recessions, wiring her money before she had to ask, covering her rent when Grant got laid off. That all just disappeared, like I was supposed to glitter instead of hold the damn line. She forgot. Or worse, she didn't. She remembered and decided it wasn't enough. Thursday at the community center, Estelle was already lining up folding chairs, messing with the thermostat like she always did. The place smelled like cinnamon and old hymn books, like time had slowed just for us. Irene, you look pale, she said, squinting as she straightened a chair. You sleeping okay? I lied. Fine, because what do you even say? That your own daughter shoved your love off a ledge and handed your place to someone else? That you gave 30 years and got treated like an afterthought? But Estelle had known me before all of it, before the Mrs. Talbot days, before Lena. She sat beside me, took my hand, and said the one thing she always does when she knows something's broken. Don't hold it in. It'll rot you. So I told her about the dinner, the words, the baby booties, sitting in the dark. Estelle went still. Then her face tightened, protective, angry, mother-wild. She said that to your face. With you right there. I nodded. I always knew that girl resented your steadiness, she snapped. You didn't spoil her like the Mitchells, but damn it, Irene, you gave her everything. I muttered. I was never fun. Not like the mother-in-law, with the wine nights and matching holiday pajamas. Estelle turned toward me, full-bodied like the moment mattered. She doesn't get to rewrite history just because it's easier to love someone who buys matching sets. You raised her. You gave her college, bailed her out of that mortgage mess, stitched her life back together every time it unraveled. I didn't say anything, but something inside of me shifted, and it wasn't grief. It was something colder, cleaner. I think she's always seen my love like it came with a price, because I never dressed it up. Estelle said, you gave her dignity. And then, like she meant to hit bone. And now she's ashamed of the mirror you held up that landed. Maybe I remind Lena of every piece of her past she's trying to outrun. Being broke, being scared, being raised by a woman who loved her without singing about it. Sunday morning, I showed up early to church like I always did, and found my usual seat near the back. Not because I was trying to be humble, it was just habit. I liked watching people come in, their quiet nods and familiar little routines. That it reminded me that even when your own daughter treats you like an afterthought, strangers still acknowledge you with a bit of respect. Lena was there too. She hadn't noticed me sneak in. She was out in the vestibule, laughing with one of the younger women, her voice light and breezy, her belly round in a tight blue dress. She looked like something off a parenting magazine. I wasn't trying to listen. I really wasn't. But I heard her anyway. My mother, Lena said, letting out a soft laugh. She's difficult. Always has been. Very bitter. She never really supported my dreams. Just wanted me to be practical. Like her. The other woman gave her that polite, understanding look people give when someone turns their complaints into a noble scar. Lena went on. Her heart was in the right place, I guess, but she just never believed in me. I used to beg her to come to my art shows. She always said she had to work late, or that it wouldn't pay the bills. I think that kind of judgment shapes you. I didn't move, not because of what she said, but because of how easy it was for her to say it like that. That art show, she was 19. It was the night before her student loan bill was due. She wanted me to come look at black and white prints of her ex-boyfriend's apartment floor. I had just gotten off a double shift. I told her I'd come the next day. She cried. I still sent flowers, and that turned into, she never supported my dreams. I bit down on the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood, not from anger, from holding back. Because this wasn't just a new version of things, it was wiping them out. Every overnight in every side gig I picked up so she could have new pointe shoes, every homemade birthday cake because I couldn't afford the bakery ones, all of it reduced to bitterness in her version of the story. I left before the sermon even started, didn't say goodbye, not out of spite, because I finally saw it for what it was. She wasn't embarrassed by me. She needed me to be the reason. Tuesday morning, Sunlight eased through the kitchen window like it was trying not to bother anyone. I moved slow, on purpose, rinsed my teacup, folded the dish towel, lined up the mail, every motion calm and clean, like I was bracing for something I couldn't quite say yet. By 10, I was walking into the downtown office of Bradley and Miles, too quiet in there for a place where people go to reshape entire lives. A young assistant offered me coffee. I said no. I didn't come for comfort. I came to finish something. The receptionist handed me a clipboard and a pen. Just those standard updates you requested, Ms. Langford. I didn't blink at the name. I hadn't used Mrs. Spence's since her father passed. Just Irene Langford. No title, no adornment, just me. The lawyer, Reuben, wasn't much older than Lena. He gave me a polite smile and motioned for me to take the seat across from his big glass desk. You wanted to discuss your will? He asked, sliding a file toward me. No, I said, setting down my purse. I paused, pen in hand. Was I really doing this? Removing someone? Yes. He asked who, and I said it without blinking. Lena Langford, my only daughter. He looked up, caught off guard. Do you want to name a contingent beneficiary? I already had. I pulled a folded letter from my purse, one I wrote the night I couldn't sleep after coming home from church. It wasn't bitter, it was just direct. I handed it over. He opened it carefully, read through the lines. I told him I wanted the money I'd saved for Lena's inheritance to go somewhere else. I wanted it to fund a scholarship for single mothers, women who keep going without anyone telling them they matter. Reuben blinked like he hadn't expected something that pointed. You don't want to leave anything to family. I leaned back. Family isn't about shared blood. It's about who actually shows up. The paperwork was simple. The office ran smoothly. Everything got signed in clean lines. And when I put my name down for the last time, something eased inside me, like I'd been holding my breath for a decade and just figured out how to let it out. This wasn't about getting even, not about blame. It was about letting go. I left, the building lighter than I'd felt in years. The city moved around me, car horns, people hustling to lunch and running late. But I didn't rush. I walked into a bakery and bought a scone. Not for Lena, not for anyone, just for me. Raspberry, still warm. I hadn't touched that box in nearly a decade. It had been stuffed in the back of the linen closet, under towels and those scented candles no one lights. The cardboard had softened over time, corners worn down, but it stayed together as I set it on the kitchen table. Inside were letters, piles of them, all from Raymond, Lena's father, my husband, gone 22 years this May. He wrote all the time when he was away. Every business trip, every overnight at the factory when they were short-staffed. Lena used to roll her eyes. Dad's letters always say the same thing. She'd whine as a teenager. Be good to Mom, don't forget your vitamins. But I kept every one. I opened the one he sent on her 3rd birthday. He wrote, Irene, she's got your fire. I can already tell. Don't worry when she pushes back on rules. She'll be grateful for them once the world stops making excuses for her. Another letter came after she broke her arm falling off the jungle gym. I wish I'd been there, but I'm glad she had you. She always has you. I stopped on the one he wrote when Lena got into college. He'd underlined 3 lines. You were never soft. You were steady. She forgets the difference until she needs it again. But don't let that harden you. There's power in standing alone, Irene. Don't apologize for being the rock instead of the sea. I don't know why those words cut through me that morning. Maybe because he saw it, who I really was. The one who kept the lights on, even when no one said thank you for paying the bill. The woman who taught her daughter how to budget instead of ask for handouts. Who climbed up and patched her own roof because she wasn't waiting on a man to fix it. Who stood at the stove night after night, cooking while everyone else acted like she didn't get tired to. I looked out the window toward the backyard. The peonies had come early this year, bold and pink, like they didn't care who thought they were out of style. Maybe I'd become like that, done blooming for anyone else's approval. I folded the letters back into place, tied them up with ribbon, and set them next to the scholarship paperwork. I wasn't about to beg Lena to remember what was true. The phone rang mid-afternoon, just as I was repotting the basil. I almost ignored it, but the number blinking on the screen was hers, and curiosity beat out caution. I wiped my hands, took a breath, and answered. Hi Mom, she said, her voice too chipper. Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I could hear the smile she'd practiced. I'm home, I said, steady. But I've got a few things going on. There was a pause. Well, she said, with that brittle cheer starting to leak through, we're finally working on the nursery, and I thought maybe, if you had time, you could come over. Help pick some paint colors. You've always been good at that kind of thing. I pulled the phone away and just stared at it, like it might give me some kind of answer. 2 weeks ago, I didn't exist. 2 weeks ago, she didn't need me, and now I was suddenly useful again because I was good at colors. I brought the phone back. I've got other priorities right now. Another pause, this one longer. Oh, she said, thrown off. Okay, like what? I smiled, just to myself. There it was. That moment she realized something had shifted. I'm working on something personal, I told her. And honestly, I'm not available to help decorate. The silence on her end had a new weight to it, not just surprised, offended. Oh well, I didn't realize you were so busy, she said. Each word dipped in sarcasm. I am, I said, and I don't make space anymore for people who only reach out when they need something. That landed, I could feel it, even through the static. She tried to pull it back, but the cracks were showing. That's not fair, Mom. I just thought it'd be nice for the baby. I thought maybe we could do something together again. Is that what you thought when you called the rain the real grandmother at dinner? I asked, my voice low, steady. She didn't answer. Did you think of me then? I asked again, sharper this time. When you said it, when you didn't even look at me, did you forget that I spent every Sunday the past 3 months knitting booties, folding onesies for a room I'm not even allowed in anymore? Her voice dropped. I didn't mean it like that. But you said it like that, I snapped. Then quieter. And you didn't take it back. There was a long pause. No air in it. She was swallowing something. Pride, maybe. Or just the shock of meeting this version of me for the first time. Well, she said finally, I guess I didn't realize you'd taken it so hard. And there it was. That soft arrogance people have when they've never been told no. I'm not taking it hard, I said. I'm just not pretending it didn't happen. I waited, then added, I wish you well, Lena. I mean that, but I'm not shrinking myself to fit back into your life on your terms. She let out this sharp little breath, bitter. So what? You're just done with me now? No, I said. I was done pleading for a place I'd already earned long ago. And then I did the one thing she never thought I'd do. I ended the call. I laid the phone face down on the table, heart pounding, not from panic, but with the sharp, steady rush that only comes from finally breaking a habit. The quiet that followed was perfect. For the first time in years, I hadn't folded. I didn't offer to bake something or soften my tone just to smooth things over. I simply said no. And like every poisonous thing, the rumor began softly, spreading slow until it soaked through everything. Estelle was the first to tell me. We were sitting in the church fellowship room, folding flyers for the charity auction. She leaned in close, barely above a whisper. Figured you'd want to know. I caught Shirley Ann talking at the salon. Said, Lena's been telling folks you're not doing too well. I looked up, steady. Not doing well. She's been saying you're forgetful, that you're pulling away, that maybe you've got something starting. Early. The words hung there, thick and stale. Estelle's eyes stayed locked on mine. I don't believe a word of it. But the talk's picking up. She's telling people you left the baby shower group because you were too confused, that you're having trouble managing the basics. I blinked slowly. Once, then again. I didn't feel confused. I felt rage. Not loud, not chaotic. The kind that narrows your vision and plants your feet. That girl's rewriting the story faster than I can burn the drafts, I said, keeping my voice level. Estelle's jaw clenched. She's cutting you off before anyone starts asking real questions. And just like that, the picture came into focus. Lena knew she'd crossed the line. She knew I walked away, and didn't bother looking back. People were starting to notice. And rather than own her mess, she decided to paint me as the problem, make me look unstable. That way, if I ever spoke out, they'd already have a reason to dismiss every word. My hands were shaking as I folded the last flyer. She doesn't want to deal with fallout, I said. She wants to bury the witnesses. Estelle didn't say anything for a beat. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a slim, leather journal. She slid it toward me. What's this? I asked. A record, she said. Start one, write down everything. What she said, when she said it, what really happened, what's true. If she wants to mess with your memory, prove how clear it still is. I took it home and let it sit untouched for 3 days. Not because I was unsure, but because I needed that first page to count. When I finally opened it, I started with the dinner, and the words came fast, like they'd been waiting behind my teeth for months. Paige's yellow dress, the steady way her voice held when she said Clarice was the real grandmother, the freeze in the room, my exact words, the way I walked to the door, the silence behind me. Then I wrote about the phone call, the paint colors, the ask, my no, how fast her tone changed when I didn't bend, and finally, the rumors, that I was forgetful, not myself, that she implied I wasn't safe to be near a newborn. I wrote it all in sharp, clean print, clear enough to read from across the table. Then I added receipts, bank statements, the date of my last dentist visit, photos of the scholarship forms, notes from the quilting group. Every woman there had seen me run errands, manage money, keep a schedule. They'd seen me show up, take care of things, think clearly. They wouldn't call me unstable. Not with this kind of proof staring them in the face. By Friday, I had that binder ready, so detailed it could go head to head with a full-blown audit. I didn't make any copies yet, just tucked it away inside a fireproof safe, labeled so there'd be no confusion if anyone ever had to find it. Then, I walked into quilting group like I hadn't just spent the week being smeared behind my back. I smiled, I stitched, I passed out lemon bars like usual. When Nadine Clark pulled me aside and murmured, "Irene, someone said you've been acting strange lately, but you seem fine to me." I looked her square in the face. Lena's shame doesn't fit her narrative, I told her, so she's dressing it up as my decline. Nadine just gave a slow nod and said something I haven't forgotten since. "Well, you don't seem like a woman who's fading, Irene. You seem like one who's about to rise." A week later, I found myself in the center of the quilting circle, sitting among women whose hands had spent decades mending more than just fabric. We were working on a memory quilt for the community center's silent auction. I was stitching a square with a bluebird, Lena's favorite when she was a kid. Estelle sat next to me, working on sunflowers. Every now and then, she glanced over, like she was reading between the stitches. "Irene," she said softly, "you sure you want to keep coming, with what folks are saying?" I didn't answer right away, just reached into my tote, pulled out the binder, and laid it in front of me. Not to make a scene, not to cause a stir, just to have it there. "I want people to know," I said, steady and clear. "I'm not hiding." I slid it across the table toward Nadine. She blinked, surprised. "What is this?" "Clarity," I told her. "Everything Lena claims I forgot. Everything she hints I can't handle. My schedule, my health records, bank logs, letters from people who've worked with me, volunteered, next to me, known me for years." The room went still, not awkward, not judging, just quiet, like the air before a storm passes overhead. Nadine opened the binder and turned through the pages slowly. You could see it in her face, confusion giving way to understanding, and then something steadier, respect. "She's trying to erase you," Nadine said, her voice tightening. I gave a small nod, "But I know who I am." And just like that, the energy shifted, like someone had tugged a thread clean through the fabric. Faye leaned forward. "I remember you. Put together that whole meal train for Judy after her hip surgery. You brought an actual dinner and stayed to do her dishes." Jolene added, "You did all the numbers for the fundraiser last spring, had every cent balanced to the penny." Even Wilma, who barely ever says a word in meetings, looked up and whispered, "You taught me how to sew in a zipper." That wasn't even part of the class. Each woman spoke like she was unearthing something she'd always carried deep down but had pushed aside for a while. Paige could play the neighborly act, twist the timeline, cast herself as the wounded one, but in that room, I wasn't just Irene the mother. I was Irene who builds, Irene who fixes what's broken, Irene who doesn't fold when it gets hard. After the meeting, Nadine caught me by the coffee table. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "If anyone spreads that kind of talk again, they're gonna have to say it to our faces." I didn't cry, but for the first time in weeks, I let go of something heavy inside me. I wasn't standing alone anymore, and I didn't need to raise my voice to make myself heard. That night, I went home and put the binder back in the safe, not out of fear, but because it had already done what it needed to do. There, in my quiet living room, I finally believed something I'd been circling around for a while. I didn't owe anyone a defense of who I used to be. What mattered now was how I chose to live today, openly, completely, and on my own terms. So I made a choice. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped letting Paige live rent-free in my thoughts. Instead, I picked up an old notebook and wrote just one line, signed up to volunteer at the library. It was a small move, but it felt like the first real one. It was a vow that from now on, my time and energy would go where they could breathe and become something, where I was seen, wanted, and treated with the kind of respect that didn't have to be earned over and over again. Not because I had something to prove, but because I was finally ready to choose peace. The invitation came on a pale blue card, delivered in person by Paige's husband. I didn't invite him in. He stood on my porch like he was handing off a gift no one asked for. My mom wanted to have tea with you, he said, like it was a favor. She thought maybe you two could talk it out, ease some of the tension. His words were smooth, too smooth. It was obvious he'd been sent. I almost turned him down without a second thought, but something told me to go, not for them, but for myself. So I pulled on my favorite sweater, the one Paige once mocked, saying it made me look like a church pew. I wore it anyway. It was soft, and it didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. Just like me, her mother's house smelled like powder and old lavender, all done up in pale colors and polite smiles. The tea was oversteeped, the cookies were from a plastic tray, but she greeted me like we were part of the same tribe. I just hate seeing families drift like this, she said gently. I know Paige can be a lot sometimes, but her heart's in the right place. She just wants to feel like someone's in her corner. I looked around the room, the spotless counters, the little wooden signs with sayings like family first and bless this mess. It all felt soft, warm on the surface, but hollow underneath. She kept going. Paige told me there was a falling out, and I just thought maybe, for the baby's sake, you two could find your way back. I know how much you've wanted to be involved. I took a slow sip of the bitter tea, held it on my tongue, then swallowed. I set the cup down slow and steady. You already claimed the role, I said, my voice level. You don't need anything from me. Her smile faltered like she wasn't sure if she should keep pretending or back off. I'm not mad, I said. I'm just not confused anymore. There's a difference. But Irene, can't there be space for more than one grandma? Sure, I said. There's space, but there's no respect. She blinked like that caught her. I was the one who raised Paige when no one else stepped up. Not for applause, but not to be forgotten either. I stood up, pulling my coat around me. Enjoy your tea, I said, and your crown. You earned her affection. Then I walked out. No anger, no bitterness, just done, because not every invite is a chance to reconnect. Some are bait dressed up like peace. And I've walked over enough shaky bridges to know when it's smarter to turn back. They invited me to speak at the library. Nothing fancy, just a local gathering, mostly women, a few retirees, a few still trying to figure things out. The topic was resilience through the years. Estelle put my name in without asking. I almost said no, but I didn't. I stood there in front of a loose circle of metal chairs, hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold. I wasn't always alone. I started, but I've spent a lot of years feeling like I didn't exist. A few women nodded, slow. I raised a daughter who sees her success as something she built out of silence, not the woman who held her through it. That hit, I saw it, right in their eyes. That look of knowing, that ache you swallow when you've poured your whole body into love, only to be told it didn't count. I didn't cry, I talked. I told them how I kept dinner on the table when the fridge was empty, except for hope and leftovers, how I stitched together prom dresses with scraps, because boutiques weren't in the budget, how I scraped up change from the glove box just to drive to job interviews, and even after all that, I still got replaced by someone newer, flashier, someone who smiled more and kept her opinions to herself. My daughter says I didn't believe in her, I said, my voice low, that I was bitter. A woman across from me brushed a tear from her cheek. But belief doesn't always look like clapping from the sidelines. Sometimes it sounds like take the graveyard, shift if it means getting in the door, or no, we can't pay for art school. I'll take you to every art gallery in the county, if that's what it takes for someone to remember your name. The room went quiet, not heavy, not tense, but like something delicate had just been placed between us, and we were both too careful to breathe too loud. I smiled, soft but steady. For a long time I thought I had to justify every decision I made while raising her, like I owed someone an explanation just to be allowed to be proud. But I don't need anyone's approval to stand by what I survived. When it ended, a few women came over and hugged me. Some didn't say a word, just held my hand tight, like I had said something out loud they were still too scared to admit, even to themselves. That night I stood in front of the mirror, not as her mom, not as some regret in someone else's story, but as a woman who had walked straight through hell without letting a single flame touch her child. I waited until the day of her baby shower, the one I never got an invite for. I had known it was coming. Weeks of online posts, pale pink balloons, a cake tall enough for a wedding, a registry packed with things I used to dream about giving her, things I had already bought, quietly, months ago. Before the words real grandmother split something in two, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I lit a candle at my dining table and started writing. Dear Lena, this isn't a bitter letter. It's an honest one. You've decided to write me out of your life. That's your choice to make. But I won't keep quiet just so your version of things can stay clean. I raised you. Not perfectly, but with everything I had. My time, my labor, my rules, my love, tough sometimes, but it never walked away. I'm not going to your shower. Not because I'm mad, but because I won't sit in a room where I'm both seen and shut out. I've made changes to my will, not to punish you, just to set things right. What I leave behind will go to those who need it, who value it, who see me. I've enclosed the legal documents, signed, stamped, official, and some photos. Ones you seem to have forgotten. You in my arms after your first recital, me cheering louder than anyone else in the room. You curled up in my coat the night your fever wouldn't break. Me holding your college diploma, proud in a way you never looked back to notice. These moments are real. Whether or not they fit the story you tell now, you've found yourself a new family. One that flatters you more. That's okay. I won't fight for a place I'm not wanted. But I won't be erased. If her love raised you better, then give her more grace than you ever gave me. With clarity, Irene. I sealed the envelope. No tears smudged the page, just steady pen strokes and a decision made. I dropped the letter in the mailbox that afternoon. No tracking, no return label. She'd know it came from me. She'd understand what it meant. 3 days after the baby shower, I sold the heirlooms. They'd been sitting untouched in my cedar chest for years. My mother's gold locket, the silver tea set from my wedding, the quilt my great-grandmother sewed by hand. Paige always talked like they were hers already. One day, when I have a daughter, she used to say, all wide-eyed and certain, I'll pass them down. She never once asked me if I wanted that. To her, legacy was automatic, something owed, not earned. But I came to understand it's not about bloodlines. It's about who shows up, who respects what came before, and respect. That was never something Paige figured out how to give. So I called a private collector. He showed up in a pressed suit with soft gloves and words like preservation and history. When he named the prices, I didn't blink. I didn't barter. I signed the papers, handed over the box, and watched decades of assumed inheritance disappear out the front door. It didn't feel like grief. It felt like release. That same day, I logged into my bank account and shut down the joint savings account I'd opened for Paige back when I still believed she might come through. She never put a single dollar in it, but she sure liked to mention it anytime she talked about her fallback plans. I removed her from my emergency contact forms, and then I blocked her number. Not out of spite, but because I needed quiet, and her voice only ever stirred up noise. The next morning, I changed the locks. Not because she still had a key, but because I couldn't stand the idea that she once thought she had the right to just walk in. Then, I walked the house slowly, like airing out a place after smoke's cleared. I opened every window. I wiped down the shelves. I went to the nursery. One piece at a time. I folded the baby clothes, boxed up the books. I wasn't keeping anything, but I wasn't throwing it away either. Somewhere out there, another baby needed a fresh start, one not soaked in guilt. Around noon, I drove over to the women's shelter and handed the box to a young woman at the front desk. She blinked when I told her it was all handmade. I nodded. She took the box like it held something holy. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't leave a name. I wasn't looking for praise. I just believed good things should go where they'll be cared for. By the time I pulled back into my driveway, the house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt mine. Light, uncluttered, mine. I fixed myself a sandwich, nothing fancy, and sat at the same kitchen table where it had all come apart. The chair she used to sit in was empty, and I let it stay that way. Later that day, I got to the last piece. I pulled up my laptop, logged into the PhotoCloud account she always assumed I'd keep footing the bill for, and saved every picture that still meant something to me. Her as a toddler with chocolate smeared across her face, me and Victor holding her at the hospital, her high school graduation, where I wore my old wedding dress because there wasn't enough money for anything else. Then I wiped the rest. Not to pretend she never existed, but to let go of the version of her that believed I owed her my life, just because I gave her hers. When the final file disappeared, I leaned back and let out a breath. I didn't need her to say thank you. I didn't even need her to say she was sorry. I just needed her gone. And now, she was. Until she wasn't. She pulled up in the driveway. A little after noon. No text, no knock, just the slam of a car door and the hard click of heels I'd know in my sleep. You blocked me, she snapped the second I opened the door. Are you serious right now, Mom? I stood in the doorway, didn't move, didn't let her in. I got your little letter, she said, waving the envelope like it was a court summons. And the will changes. Selling the family heirlooms. What the hell is wrong with you? Her voice cut through the neighborhood, bounced off the quiet. A runner slowed across the street. Wind chimes clinked behind us. I didn't speak, just turned back inside, grabbed the second envelope off the hallway table, one she hadn't seen, and handed it over. What's this? She demanded. Read it when you're alone, I told her. I won't be here waiting. Her face twisted, stuck between not understanding and not liking what she did. What the hell does that mean? But I didn't respond. I didn't soften. Didn't put my hand on her arm the way I always used to, trying to drown her fire with my quiet. I stepped past her, walked to the car, got in, and drove. I didn't turn around. She hadn't come to make peace. She came to take back what she thought still belonged to her. But I had already let it all go. Not out of bitterness, out of truth. Let her read that letter in silence, with no one watching. Let her sit with the truth without an audience to impress. Let her sit in the thick silence of her own entitlement. And for the first time in decades, I let myself be something I hadn't dared to be in years. Gone. She read it. I could feel it in the stillness of the house the next morning, like the air itself had shifted gears. That kind of silence only shows up when the armor someone's been hiding behind finally cracks open. She didn't call, didn't show her face. But word still found its way to me. Just not from her, of course. Estelle said Lena called in sick, skipped out on the baby shower brunch she'd planned with Clarice, claimed she wasn't feeling well. I didn't say much, just nodded. She wasn't sick, she was coming apart. The letter didn't come with sharp words or theatrics, just the kind of truth you can't argue with. On the first page, the numbers, bank records, school invoices, scholarship deposits, all the times I came through when she claimed I didn't back her dreams. Second page, photos through the years, her face bruised and beautiful, determined and rising. Each picture with a caption in my handwriting. I stood beside her in every single one, even when she wouldn't turn around to see it. Third page, the baby clothes, custom labels with stitched in dates, a receipt from the fabric shop, stamped, dated, before she even told me if it was a boy or a girl. Fourth page, copies of donation slips I signed, scholarships under her name, proof that I took what she tossed and turned it into someone else's future. And finally, the letter, not bitter, just memory. I reminded her of the things she used to say when she was 5, how she couldn't sleep unless I sang Edelweiss, how I braided her hair every single picture day, how I held her after her first heartbreak, whispered to her, "You are still enough." I wrote, "You asked for a mother who spoiled you. I chose instead to prepare you for a world that wouldn't. You wanted fairy tales. I gave you a roof, clean sheets, a pantry that never ran empty. You wanted softness. I gave you strength. And now you tell me I never gave you anything but your breath, your spine, your fight. That's all built from my sacrifices. You became you because I stood where no one else ever would." And then I ended it with the one thing I knew would sting. Not out of spite, but because it was the truth. If she raised you better, be better to her than you were to me. And I signed it, your mother, but no longer your caretaker. I didn't leave a door cracked, didn't ask her to reach out, didn't say, "Call me if you ever want to talk." I wasn't looking for conversation. I wanted the truth to sit heavy in her like January cold. That night, Estelle called again. "She's been quiet," she said, like it caught her off guard. "It's not really the kind of letter you respond to." I told her, "It's the kind you either sit with or run from." Estelle went quiet for a second. You think she'll come around? I was staring out at the garden. The peonies were starting to fall apart, petals slipping into the dirt, barely holding their shape. I don't know, I said. And I'm okay not knowing, because it wasn't really about Lena anymore. It was about me. That's when the calls started again. Not from Lena, but from the family. Glenda called first, her voice low and careful. I just heard some things. About everything. About what you did with the scholarship. Then Irene. I didn't realize, she said. Then cousin Wanda. Then Estelle's sister. Then even my late husband's cousin, the one who hadn't picked up the phone in nearly a decade. One by one, they trickled in, like water slipping through. Worn stone, cautious, unsure. All of them suddenly remembering I was still here. And I could hear it plain as day in their voices. Guilt. Guilt that they'd believed Lena without pause. Guilt that they'd smiled along when she called me stiff, cold, confused. Guilt that they never once thought to ask me how it really was. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. I owed no one my side. Each call ended the same way. We should get together soon. Or, we should have reached out earlier. Every time, I gave the same answer. I'm doing just fine. And I meant it. I wasn't letting them in. Not all the way. Not now. Not out of anger. But because I'd moved on from the woman who used to chase people just to feel seen. I wasn't trying to earn anybody's love anymore. I was done performing. Then, one evening, Estelle showed up at my door with a casserole dish, and that look on her face. Nadine says Lena's husband, Grant, has been asking questions. I lifted a brow. What kind of questions? About you, your will, your money. He saw that press release about the scholarship. Irene, and I quote, was always more generous than people ever gave her credit for. I let out a breath, halfway between a sigh and a laugh. Now, he wants to rewrite the whole story. Estelle leaned back in her chair. Guys like that always think a little spin can patch things up. But this isn't just some image crisis he can smooth over. This is her reflection starting to fracture. I sat with that thought for a second. Maybe now he did see me differently. Maybe he'd finally started noticing the cracks in that version of me Lena had been selling for years. Still, it didn't change a thing. Their approval never healed the damage. All it ever did was confirm what I'd already come to understand, that the truth has its own gravity, and sooner or later, it lands where it belongs. That same week, I got a text inviting me to a small family thing. No details, no real commitment. Lena would be there. No pressure. The message said, "We just miss you." But it was pressure, dressed up as warmth, with apologies that didn't hold up under daylight. So I passed. Not with bitterness, with composure. I wrote back, "I wish you well, but I'm done stepping into rooms that didn't look for me when they should have." No response came. I didn't expect one. But the silence sat easy this time, because it was mine. That Saturday, I took myself out and picked up a pair of pearl earrings. Nothing flashy, not pricey, just simple and sure. I wore them to church the next morning. Walked in, standing straighter, not to be noticed, but because I finally saw myself. When Nadine leaned over and whispered, "You look like someone who doesn't carry dead weight anymore," I smiled. She was right. I wasn't dragging the weight of being misunderstood, or overlooked, or rewritten. I was holding only what's mine now. My voice, my focus, my name. The first morning, in my new place, the floor creaked different. Not because it was older, it wasn't, but because the silence no longer echoed her name. No baby cries, no strained phone calls, no sudden knocks, followed by tight apologies dripping with expectation. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and the coffee brewing slow in a machine I bought myself. The apartment wasn't big. One bedroom, a decent-sized kitchen, and a window that caught the sunrise just right if I remembered to keep the blinds cracked. I painted the walls cream, not because I was chasing peace, but because I was done with compromise. For once, I didn't ask anyone else's opinion. Not Lena's, not Estelle's, not the realtor's. Irene Langford, just the name on the lease. No Mrs. No and daughter. Just me. I unpacked slow that first week, not because I was tired, but because each box came with its own small reckoning. I held the vase Lena gave me for my 60th, the one she didn't bother to wrap, just handed it off like obligation. I didn't break it, didn't toss it either. I left it at the Goodwill on 7th, with a note taped to the bottom that said, "Still holds water, just not memory. By Friday, the place was set. I bought a new chair, deep navy, something soft enough to read in but sturdy enough to hold me without creaking like I was too much. I placed it by the window, started keeping a stack of books there, some fiction, some history, all mine. That night, I wrote my name in the front pages like a teenager trying to claim something, not because I needed to, but because no one else was going to write me in anymore. The library asked me back. Different talk this time, grief that doesn't ask for attention. A group of women, none of them young, most of them wearing rings for men long gone, or none at all. They didn't flinch when I told them I had no intention of going back, to Lena, to the house, to the role I played in someone else's version of motherhood. I didn't leave angry, I told them. I left full of all the words I never got credit for saying, all the dinners I made that turned into footnotes, all the nights I stayed up worrying about someone who never wondered if I slept. They listened, not politely. Honestly, that was the difference. No one tried to wrap it in scripture or soft phrases like, "But she's your daughter." They just nodded. Some took notes. Afterward, a woman named Judith approached. Mid-70s, sharp bob, eyes that looked like they'd cut through half the men in Congress if she had to. She said, "You've got room now. You ever think about using it?" I must have looked confused because she smirked. "We run a mentorship program for girls aging out of foster care. Some of them never had a mother, most of them don't want one, but they're still trying to figure out how to pay bills, how to cook for one, how not to pick men who make their lives smaller." I blinked. She didn't blink back. "You interested?" I just didn't know it until she said it. So I asked for the pamphlet. I read it that night, at the little table by the window. The one I built myself with wood from my old porch swing. I stayed up late thinking about what it would mean, to teach without expectation. To give, and not get erased for it. I signed up on Sunday. And by Monday, I met Tasha, 22, all edges and side-eye. She walked into the coffee shop like she already regretted saying yes to the meeting. Hoodie, headphones, chipped nails. She looked at me like I was either going to preach or disappoint her. I didn't do either. I said, "Coffee's on me." She shrugged. "I don't do sugar." "Good means you'll live longer." That got the smallest flicker of a smirk. We talked for 20 minutes, then 30, then 2 hours passed. She didn't tell me much, not at first, but I didn't need her whole story. I'd heard enough echoes to recognize pain when it showed up in hard shoulders and tired eyes. Before she left, she asked, "You always talk like that." "Like what?" "Like you don't need anybody's approval to breathe." I looked at her steady. "I spent 30 years apologizing for breathing loud. I'm done with that now." She gave a small nod. "Cool." 2 days later, she called me. Not for help, just to talk. And when I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't think about Lena. I didn't let that guilt ghost find its way back in. I just stood at the window, watching the street lights blink on, one by one. Like the world wasn't ending just because a daughter stopped calling. I started to see it clearly then. I wasn't building a second life. I was finally living the first one, unburdened, and I had no intention of going back. It was early fall when I realized I didn't miss her voice anymore. The air had that crispness to it. The kind that makes you reach for sweaters without thinking, makes you crave soup. On the stove and windows cracked just enough to let the cold in without surrendering to it. I was pulling weeds in the little plot outside my apartment, the one no one else touched, and I found myself humming. No melody, just a rhythm in my throat, quiet and steady. That hum had been gone for years. Tasha called later that afternoon. She was upset. Something about a roommate, a paycheck that hadn't cleared. She didn't ask me to fix it, just wanted to hear someone say, "You'll be okay." So I did. And then I told her to take the 20 I slipped into her pocket last week and buy herself dinner. Not fast food, I said. Something hot with real utensils. She didn't say thank you. She just said, "You're annoying. But you're right." I smiled at the phone like it was an old friend. The next day, the postman handed me a letter. Not a bill, not a donation request. Just a soft white envelope with my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Lena. I held it for a long time before I opened it, not because I was scared, but because I was no longer in a rush to let her in. Inside, 3 pages, slanted pen, no dramatic opener, just her voice, stripped of its usual varnish. She wrote, "I thought being loved meant being lifted, cheered, spoiled. But now that I'm the one doing the lifting, the feeding, the midnight waking, I finally understand. Love is the weight you carry so someone else doesn't have to. She wrote about the baby, a girl, born 2 weeks after her due date, full head of hair, named Rain, with a Y, like it made her more original. She wrote, "She looks like you. I didn't think she would, but every time she frowns in her sleep, I see your mouth, your strength." She didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't beg for closeness. She just remembered all of it, the casseroles, the rides, the steady paycheck that somehow stretched through every storm. "I think I spent most of my life mistaking your boundaries for coldness," she wrote. "But now that I'm trying to build boundaries of my own, I realize how hard that is. You made it look easy." At the end, she wrote, "If you ever want to meet her, I'd like that. No pressure, no stage, just a chair by the window, and time." I set the letter down and watched the light shift across the table. I didn't cry. I didn't rush to call her back. I just breathed. Then I folded the letter, tucked it in a drawer, and went outside. My basil needed pruning. The neighbors had left a basket of apples by my door. Tasha was coming by later with her new resume, and we were going to practice mock interviews. She wanted to work at the bookstore. I had things to do, people to see. I didn't know if I'd go meet Rain. Maybe, maybe not. But if I did, it wouldn't be because Lena needed a photo op. That'd be because I chose to bring something forward. Not from duty, not from guilt, but from the new piece I'd made with my name, my past, and the woman I'd become when no one was watching. And that piece, it wasn't loud. It didn't shout over old pain, or rewrite the years that left me bruised. It just sat quietly beside me, like a companion I'd finally earned. I didn't need my daughter to apologize. I didn't need her to see me the way I used to beg her to, because I finally saw myself, and I was more than enough. I used to be a mother who loved her child with quiet endurance, never flashy, never loud, but after everything that's happened, I've come to realize this. Never let anyone, not even the one you love most, strip away the worth of the sacrifices you gave your whole life to make. It took me years to understand that love isn't always returned. And sometimes, letting go isn't failure. It's saving yourself. So if you were me, when your daughter denies all the years you carried her burden alone, would you keep swallowing your anger just to stay in her life, or would you stand up and hold on to the last shred of dignity you have left? I truly want to know what you would choose and why. May God bless you, as He blessed me with clarity in the darkest hour.